Hi, it's Father John Rushofsky here with another episode of The Shepherd's Voice. I wanted to have an opportunity to speak with you before Christmas about all that's going on during these very difficult and challenging times. You know, those of us who preach regularly, I've been doing it, this is my 42nd Christmas. We try to look at different ways to present the scripture material and different ways to apply it to our lives and whatever's going on in the world today, and especially in our own country. And one way to look at the Christmas story this year is to see it as a story about displacement. I know that sounds a little unusual, but bear with me here. Mary and Joseph were displaced from their hometown in Nazareth, due to the census, which was decreed by the Emperor Caesar Augustus. And so Mary had to give birth, not in the warmth and comfort of her own home, but in a cold, uncomfortable stable or barn or cave or whatever it was, in a strange town, with no one else around to help them in any way. And yet, this displacement ended up being the fulfillment of God's magnificent plan of salvation. And so, you know, we heard the predictions from the Old Testament. From Bethlehem will come forth the ruler of Israel. And so it did. We find ourselves now, here more than 2,000 years later, we're displaced from the warmth and comfort of gathering in large numbers, full churches, to celebrate the Eucharist at Christmas in our four beautiful churches. And that's a troubling time for us. And, you know, displacement is something that we all experience at different times in our lives, and we usually see it as something that's irritating or annoying or something to be barely tolerated. But God's idea of displacement is very different from ours, because he doesn't see it as annoying or irritating. He sees it as an opportunity for revelation and for grace. Think of the stories of Scripture, especially the Old Testament stories about displacement, things that just didn't seem to go the way they should go. Abraham and Sarah, for example, giving birth to Isaac in their old age. Poor Moses, dragging those obstinate Israelites across the desert for 40 years, grumbling and complaining the whole time. The story of Ruth, the story of David, the story of most of the prophets were reluctant. They were displaced because they didn't want the job. It wasn't an easy or happy one. So there was a lot of displacement all through Scripture. And so maybe we can consider our own displacement. You know, our parish, Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish, brand new parish, we're offering 11 Christmas Masses this year. There are 7 on Christmas Eve, and then there's the Mass at midnight, and then 3 Masses on Christmas morning. The reason for that seeming imbalance is because we've learned over the years that people by far prefer to go to Mass on Christmas Eve instead of Christmas morning. So that gives us 11 Masses. Pardon me. Last year we had 12. And some have asked, well, since we're limited in seating, shouldn't we be having more Masses than we had last year? And that's a great idea on paper. But there's 2 problems with that. First of all, we only have 2 organists. And that means that they're going to be hopping around as it is from one church to another. And I'm just praying that they get to the right church at the right Mass at the right time. And if you think we can find a substitute organist on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, well, good luck trying. So that is a problem there. But the bigger problem is that each church must be sanitized after each Mass. And because we have so many Masses, and they all have to be sanitized before they can be used again, that means our maintenance crew has to work all day Christmas Eve. So we're doing the best we can with the space that we have. And we've done our best to distribute the Masses among all 4 churches, except unfortunately, Incarnation only has 1 Mass. And the reason is, you know, we can only seat so many people in the church, and that's the smallest of the churches. That, on a good day, seats 280. So 25% of that is only 65 or 70 people. And so we needed to concentrate the masses in the bigger churches as much as possible. But you know, even with 11 Christmas masses, they're already full. In fact, 3 of those mass times on Christmas Eve filled up immediately as soon as the registration first opened. And now all of the masses, unfortunately, are full. And so if you haven't registered, you won't be able to attend in person. So that means, not surprisingly, we have people who are disappointed and frustrated because they are displaced. So you may wonder, well, what are we going to do about this? What's the parish going to do? Well, we have suggestions on a practical level and on a spiritual level. First of all, on a practical level, understand that the 2 o'clock Mass, Christmas Eve, at St. Athanasius will be live streamed. So you don't even have to leave your house. You can sit huddled with your family in front of the fireplace if you want. You can even wear your jammies. We won't be able to see what you're wearing. But you know, you won't have to worry about parking or weather or what your outfit is or anything. So and you'll be able to watch not just at 2 o'clock, but after it's live streamed, you'll be able to watch it after that as well. So that's that's the 2 o'clock Mass at St. Athanasius. Another thing is that the Masses at St. Athanasius, St. Sebastian, and St. Teresa will be broadcast over the radio, the FM radio 89.1. So parishioners can remain in their cars in the church parking lots, and you will be allowed into the church to receive communion, and you'll be provided assistance in this from people like we have some of the Knights of Columbus will be helping us. And in fact, if at a church like Athanasius, for example, which is nestled in a tight little neighborhood, if you live close enough to the church, you'll actually be able to probably hear it on your FM radio in your house. But we'll also have help from with traffic control from the Ross Township and Westview Police, who will provide safety and security as well. So that's our practical response. Under the circumstances, it's about the best we can do. But what is our spiritual response to this displacement that is caused by the pandemic? Well, you know, as your pastor, I would like you to think about this in a very specific way. Ask yourself how God is making himself known to you in this displacement experience this Christmas. Whether it's not getting a seat in church for Mass, or not being able to be seated with your family and friends around the table for Christmas dinner. Maybe God is reminding us that he is often found in the most unexpected places. We see this again all through Scripture. So I invite you to pay attention to the grace that is being offered to you in this displacement this year, and of course, hope for better times next year. Maybe we're called for a greater sense of compassion for all those who are displaced in our world, the unborn, the elderly who are alone, the immigrants, persons with disabilities, those in prison, refugees, those dying of COVID disease. Quite honestly, I've had this in my own family, my extended family. And I did that burial just a few days ago on Tuesday. You know, Pope Francis has suggested that we are not living in an era of change, but in a change of era. And I think that's something that I personally need to give some thought to, and I think it's something we all should think about. We ask for your understanding and your patience. I've said this before, you really have been very good about this all along with your understanding and acceptance of how we're trying to ride this out. And we ask you to keep doing that for us as we really strive to celebrate Christmas within the restrictions of safety and well-being imposed by this pervasive virus. This is a most unusual and challenging time for all of us. But, you know, you've heard me say this before. We can do this. We can rise to this challenge, and we can do it. Maybe, just maybe, all this displacement is a time for growth, a time of revelation, a time of grace. So let's allow ourselves to be surprised. You know, for me, that was always one of the greatest things, the most wonderful things about Christmas was the element of surprise. When I was a child, a couple of 100 years ago. There was a family rule. When we woke up Christmas morning, we were not allowed to go downstairs without our parents. So we had to go and wake our parents. And poor things, they probably had like 45 minutes sleep. But the rule was my dad would go down first. He would turn on the Christmas tree lights and the train, you know, and then we would be allowed to go down. And that element of surprise at seeing all those wrapped gifts, that's why we wrap gifts, is the element of surprise. And that was, to me, that's still, in my mind, a part of the magic of Christmas, that idea of surprise. So let's allow ourselves this year to be surprised, not by what's in the wrapped presents under the tree, but be surprised by how our loving God is present and at work in our midst. He is here among us. That's Emmanuel. That's what the word means. God is with us. Have a beautiful and blessed and happy Christmas. And on we merrily go.